Hi lovelies, it's Candy here. This week I am going to try and do some VR responses because what a week it's been on YouTube. The gloriously wonderful Natalia is back over at Ouroboros, and oh my goodness, first of all, can we just say, girl, your jewellery and your glasses. I'm supposed to be entering a depth year and all I want now is jewellery. So anyway, that aside, it's been a fantastic binge watch session for me. And she's got some fantastic new tags, which I've seen a few of you have been joining in with. And I wanted to jump right on in there. So I am going to start today with a tag called System Free Tarot, where Natalia talks about she talks about across the week her relationship with Rider Waite Smith. Hi, I've got dogs here. And she also talks about decks that she uses that are more system free. They don't necessarily fit in with Rider Waite. They don't fit in with Thoth or Marseille. And she's asked us to share on the tag any decks that we use that we feel don't fit in with the system. So I had a look at my deck collection, and it made me think about a few things actually. First of all, it made me think about my path into tarot, which was only, I tried to work out the date, I think it was only about 8 months ago. So 8 months ago, I'd been on this kind of spiritual discovery path for a couple of years, and it led me to tarot. I think I'm a trained visual artist, so you know the visual aspect of the cards really pulled me in, and that was my first pull in. Before I had any understanding that there even were systems, I discovered this through a friend. A friend had got it, and I looked at some of the cards, and I just felt so connected. The first 3 cards pulled had me in tears, which if you've watched me for half a beat, you'll know that that's not unusual. So I ordered this deck and started reading it before I even knew that tarot had systems, and I'll show you why I felt that this deck for me was my first pull in for a non-system deck. Now here I've got a whole box. This is one art project I did. This was the 100 Dolls and Me project, which has been exhibited around and about, and you will see from this artwork project that I use a lot of lines, a lot of repeating patterns. I use a lot of that in my artwork. For me, repeating lines were used in a phase where I was in the depths of trauma without realising it, before I'd woken up to what was going on, and I was actually dissociating. And for me, drawing lines was a protective aspect of my life. It was a way to keep safe and to get lost within dissociation. So you can see with this artwork that there are similarities to some of the artwork and the colours used in this first deck. I mean, I felt really, what's the word, just emotionally pulled in the second I saw this deck, because of my own art practice. I mean, for me now, 8 months, I think it's about 8 months I've been involved with learning tarot. For me, I feel like I have been doing tarot all of my life, because I've always used art. I've always looked for patterns. I've always seen meaning in colours. I've always seen meaning in shapes and lines. So when I when I discovered tarot, it felt like I'd already been doing it, even though I was holding cards for the very first time with literally no understanding of any meanings or systems or any like book knowledge. So my first, with all that said, my first deck that I am going to put into my System Free Tarot tag is my very first one, the Wild Unknown, because for me this is a deck that I still really use, even though I've got knowledge now of card meanings and the Rider Waite system, because I haven't stepped off anywhere apart from Rider Waite. I still feel called to use this deck in exactly the same way as I create my artwork, with looking at the subtle shifts of colour, the use of lines, the angles of lines, the patterns and the symbology, to pull the meanings out, just like I do with my own artwork. I mean, my own artwork, it saved me, like quite literally. It saved me, and that was through subtle discoveries, through lines and patterns and colours and repeating shapes. Yeah, so for me, this one not only speaks of a system-free tarot deck to me, but it also speaks of the way that my art practice connects with my tarot, and why I feel like I've come home every time I pick up a deck of cards. It feels like it's just a part of me that was always there, but I didn't know about it. So that's the first one. As I worked with that, I started looking more into systems and real meanings, and you know, I didn't want to feel like I was just playing at it, even though I've come full circle to reading cards again in 8 months like I started off. So I don't think I was playing at it. I think I was just I was reading the cards like my whole soul is built to read colours and patterns. But it was a kind of a case of you have to know the rules before you can break them, and I was very aware that I didn't know the rules. So I started working through books like this, Tarot 101, discovered that there were systems. There was this thing called Thoth, there was this thing called Marseille, there was this thing called Rider Waite. Then I discovered YouTube, TarotTube, and all of you lovely guys, and started watching that, and could see the huge the masses were with the Rider Waite system. My mind just couldn't cope with the thought of 3 systems, so for this first 8 months I've stuck very much to Rider Waite and started buying decks to try and get the card meanings into my mind, and to learn to read tarot properly is what I was thinking then. But very quickly in that journey of deck acquisition, I realised that a lot of these decks actually don't fit, and I went through a phase of mind frying myself, trying to make them fit because this was supposed to mean this and how did it. And it's only recently that I've realised I don't like doing that, and I don't think I even should. And I reverted back to this sort of system. So a lot of my decks I read, I layer. Sometimes I layer the card meaning in, sometimes I go completely with what it's saying to me. Anyway, enough of that. These are some of the decks that fried my my mind initially, but now I've just embraced the way I read. And the first one is one I love. It's the Guardian Tarot. Now, there is no way that this is a Rider Waite Smith system, although there are nods to it. It just isn't. It doesn't work like that for me. It just doesn't. Yeah. So if I look at some of these cards, like the Wheel of Fortune, I mean, that speaks to me more of location or houses or your life's path or moving. Does it make me think of chance? Because it's like one path. The Four of Wands, so your honeymoon, wedding, celebration card. That makes me think of loss in relationship, or ancestors, or whispers, or missing something. I mean, the Six of Wands, your victory card. I mean, that's quite a melancholy card. There's no victory in that. The Two of Pentacles, so your negotiation card. I mean, what I see there is her coming out of that barren desert with some sort of devil leaping in the background and coming through a path of cactuses into like studying some sort of seeds. So that speaks to me of new beginnings rather than negotiation. The Three of Swords. I mean, I can see the loss in there, but it looks like he's releasing the birds. So I read that more of hope and a new dawn. Seven of Cups, so your opportunities and your choices. And I mean, there's only one thing there. There's like a church, so it speaks to me of religion or needing spirituality. The Eight of Pentacles, so your achievements, success. Yes, he's playing a cello, and music takes time to learn, and the butterflies have transformed, and that takes time. But I read that more of the beauty and the transformative power of creativity, or music, or the arts. And again, I mean, the Eight of Wands, that's your movement and travel card. But I read that as a connection to the divine. So this is another deck that, yes, you can see some of the Rider Waite influences in there. And I did spend a long time as a beginner getting really confused trying to make it work, until I realised that I can let go of that. And once I did that, this deck became everything that I think it should be. I mean, I don't think we should ever get locked into a system if our intuition and soul is telling us something else. But I had to learn the systems and try and make things fit to discover that. It's all a process of learning, isn't it? Okay, Tarot of the She is my next one. And I did exactly the same with this as I did with the Guardian Tarot. I spent a long time trying to make it fit and struggling with a lot of it. For me, with this deck, what I do with this deck is it speaks to me through the connections of the patterns and the colours. And often when I do a reading with it, there are connections that immediately jump out. So I did a reading, and it makes sense because of the featuring of the spiral. So, I mean, there's a hint that the patterns are important all the time. So like if I pulled like a reading like this was actually one of my readings, and I immediately saw the circle. Look, you've got the circle protecting there, the circle there, and the circle of them all going round the sun. And I would read that with the circle at the front, rather than thinking, what does the sun card mean? What does this card mean? What does this card mean? I go initially with the connections, with the patterns. Another two that I pulled together, which I remembered in a reading, were these two. And you know, the blockage here, but and like power being blocked. But then look at the same colours and the same patterns here being released. So I read that as a release of power, but it was the patterns and the colours that I'm being pulled with. You know, and again, like if I would pull those two cards, it would be immediately the yellow, the way that the yellow sun is there and the yellow lines in the sky are there. That's how I read it. And then there are cards like this. Now, this card came up in a reading when I was struggling with some issues in my past and people from my past. And I pulled this card to signify the person. And this this should be like the marriage proposal card, yet look at this guy lurking by the water. And it made me laugh because the same person in an artwork, I drew him as a kelpie, which is like the horse that when he gets hold of somebody, you can't unstick yourself from them and they drag you down to the depths to drown. So the message I got from this card, it was so extreme and so keyed into what my soul was telling me. And yet if you go with Rider Waite, this is like, well, they've tried to do it, like they've put the gift of passion on there. It's tried to be tied in with that idea of the proposal, but for me it's just, there's a lot more terror and things you want to escape from in that card. So for me, this deck begins to work when I let go and go with the patterns and go with the artwork and go with the subtle links that are there every time I use it. Okay, the next two decks are new to me, which I haven't really worked with at all yet. I'm still studying them. And they are the Mary L. Tarot and the glorious Dreams of Gaia Tarot. So both of these, even without working with them, I know that both of these are going to be system free as well. So the Mary L, which is a second edition, which I am devastated I haven't got that first Hierophant card, which I adored. I literally adore that card. But this isn't that edition. If anybody's got the first Mary L Tarot edition that they want to talk about selling, then just for that card I'd be interested. But you can see, I mean, the Five of Cups, that is, that's anything but sorrow. If I walked round the corner and saw that, I'd be filled with joy. That for me is about magic and surprise. And the Three of Cups, it just doesn't fit. The Nine of Swords. I mean, where is the nightmare in that? It's very different, isn't it? The Eight of Discs. The Eight of Swords. I know that other people have said, oh, it fits more with Thoth, or it fits more with Marseille. I can't comment on that yet because I'm too early on in my learning journey. But I just know that I am not going to use this with any system. So that's the Mary L Tarot. And then we have the glorious Dreams of Gaia Tarot, which only arrived last week here. And straight out the gate, this book declares that this is not, this is system free. So with the Dreams of Gaia, you've got a very different system right from the get-go. So you start off, the majors start off with the choice card, because everything boils down to choice in the end. Then it's followed by 8 Path of Life cards, so things like the Child, the Maiden. So this is life stages, the Youth, the Mother. So there are 8 of these life stages cards. The Father. I love this card. The Crown. And the Sage. And then you've got a glorious Death and Rebirth card. And then after the 8 stages of life, you have the reasons for being here, which are knowledge. So another 8 cards in this section. Wisdom. Healing. Love. Union. Self. Such amazing artwork. Abundance. And destiny. And then after those 8 cards, you've got your influences, which is another section of 8, which are journey, thought, emotions, desire, perception, intuition, integrity, faith, and that's it. Those are the 8 cards. So those 3 sets with the choice card make up the majors, and you can see how that doesn't fit with any of the systems that we would traditionally call tarot systems. And then the minors are very much elemental based, and I've yet to work with them, so I can't comment on them further. But it is, it's going to be gloriously healing, this deck. I know that already. I've started studying some of the majors and I love it. It's a beautiful, beautiful deck. So the Marielle Tarot and the Dreams of Gaia are another 2 for me that are system free. I come to the Nicoletta Ciccoli Tarot, which is one that Natalia had as well. This one I had to give up in the end, trying to read it solely with my Rider Waite Smith knowledge. Although some of it does fit, a lot of the time it just gets in the way for me, and I just go with the imagery. And if it's applicable to layer in some of the Rider Waite meanings, then I will. But yeah, it just tends not to. Now I use this deck for my self-care practice and trying to overcome some food issues around food that I've got, which I've spoken about on this on my channel before. You know, I'm trying to be very open with where I'm at. And I didn't pick it because there's food in it. She says, pulling a cake and an ice cream. I pulled it because of the way it speaks to me. It doesn't pull any punches. It's got a clear voice for me. And it is a deck for me that does speak of self-care and transformation. But to do that, I have to let go of some of the systems that I'm learning. You know, this card is a stalker card for me that keeps coming up on repeat. The first card that I pulled from this deck when I decided to start doing daily draws to support me in my self-care made me giggle. It made me giggle quite a bit because I pulled what should be the victory card. So I thought, oh, I'm going to have victory in this. But then I looked again at the card and it did make me giggle because in the background you've got the white elephant in the room, and I just thought, oh, it's how I feel. I feel like I haven't been discussing something with myself, and I have turned into this heavy, huge, stuck to the ground person, like just completely lost in food addiction, and I want to become light and to fly away from that. And the woman on the flying away, she looks anything but victorious. There's a real melancholy there, and I realised that I needed to buckle up because it wasn't going to be an easy ride, and it's proving not to be. But the minute I pulled this card, I had a chuckle because I thought, oh thanks, give me one with an elephant on. But as soon as I saw it and started to read the imagery in that, I knew that this was the deck I needed to use for overcoming food addiction. You know, I get this a lot as well. It's about getting caught in the same old webs and running back to the same spot. Look, she's in that same circle on the carpet, and, you know, not knowing which way to run to get away from it, but you end up back in the same space. So yeah, I read that very much with the artwork, and it works for me. So Nicoletta Giaccoli is one too. Okay, and then one of my favourites, Tarot of the Sweet Twilight, is another one as well. It works better for me just going with the imagery and trying to let go where it needs to be let go of the system. It's supposed to be a Rider Waite clone, but you know, this is the Five of Swords, which is about being influenced to put on the same mask and to become the same robot as others. Yeah, the High Priestess card, which is a stalker card in this deck, I get it all the time, which is about protecting and fighting for the underdog. You know, she's protecting the mice around her neck while the cat looks on. The Three of Wands is about not being overwhelmed and looking back and seeing how far you've come. Even the Sun card, it's about, you know, how much sun we have inside our eyes and how much we're willing to radiate at any one time. The Six of Wands again, I mean the Victory card where he's looking at somebody boxed up and crying. The Ten of Cups, which is normally your happy home. Well, these people look exhausted. It's almost like a codependent card for me. You know, they've exhausted themselves trying to give to other people and it's wrecked their home. The Eight of Pentacles, which is about education and achieving. I mean, she's looking off into the distance. It's a desire for something else. You know, the Queen of Wands, the book says all dressed up and nowhere to go. Well, that's not who the Queen of Wands is for me. The Nine of Pentacles it shows like a thief running off with the loot. The Two of Wands, which is about planning. Well, this is all the arrows are pointing to Death Valley. I mean, this is just the kick up your arse, go get on with it card. It's slightly different meanings. I could keep going. Even the Four of Wands, which is your marriage card. I mean, I've got to snigger at that a little bit. But this is about finding an oasis to rest because you're exhausted. Very, very different. So for me, I could just keep going with this deck, how it doesn't fit. The Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands is about movement, but she's got everything balanced precariously and daren't move. And it's about like almost getting yourself stuck with wanting something to be one way and then you can't move because of it. So yeah, very, very different to me. I mean, even the World card speaks to me about environmental issues and trying to take on a battle and doing your own bit. Doesn't speak to me how the world would normally speak. So it's one of my all-time favourite decks so far in my short 8 months with tarot. It's one that when I pick it up, I just feel very at home with it. But I think it's because I don't read it. I read it with the imagery. This one, the Inner Child cards, a fairy tale tarot. Now, Grace over at Mary Grace Farwin, she's the one that put me onto this deck. I do love her so much. I will link her video as well below because she picked this deck as well. Mine has still got the original backs on, but this doesn't fit at all either. I use this for my gratitude pulls. I'm still using it for that, but it also is it's an incredibly deep deck. Don't let the fairy tale aspect of it and some of the childlike imagery make you think that this is a sweet, cutesy, kiddie deck. It isn't. It isn't. It's a healing deck. It's a deck for inner child work. It's a deck that takes you back to core wounds and to heal them. It's a deck that I think you could use to, if you're doing any sort of shadow work and you've discovered some triggers or some core wounds and you've already traced it back, that you could then come to this deck to try and integrate some of that shadow in. It does speak to the inner child. And having come from a diagnosis of complex post-traumatic stress, I can tell you that this deck has been transformative for me. It's one that I love dearly. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about is it's a indie deck. It's my only one, which I won. And this has been another lesson to not forget what I've learned so far about stepping outside of systems. Now, this is the beautiful Rain Coast Tarot. This is the pocket version by Christoph James, who in a Facebook group, in Simon's The Hermit's Cave Facebook group, he one night put a post up saying, if anybody can guess the number of this deck, I'll send it to you. Well, I'm 51, so I thought, I'll just guess my age. So I said, is it 51? And I won. You can see it's deck number 51. So I was completely blessed and incredibly thankful to be sent this beautiful deck, which I've started doing a deep dive with this month. This card, I am all about this card. It's got ravens and crow wings. She's got octopus on her cloak, and she's got a swan swimming by. And my three animal energies that have been incredibly important to me, and probably the most, for me, animal energy is the most fundamental thing that has got me through trauma and at times literally saved me. The three energies that have come to me completely unasked for have been the octopus, the swan and the crow. So this card is everything to me. It's my most precious tarot card. Anyway, if I show you some of the images in this deck, as I started to really go through each image, I'll go to the Pentacles suit because I think you see it most in there. You can see that Christoph's art style, not only is it completely splendid, is it going to focus, do you think? But it's very, very detailed. There's an awful lot going on. And when I started trying to put meanings with these cards, I thought, I wonder what Christoph was thinking of when he produced this artwork. So I contacted him via email and said, you know, do you have a guidebook for this? Because the deck comes with no white book or anything. He told me that he's in the process of putting together a guidebook, but he's so busy doing other decks. I will link his channel and his website down below. But he's so busy. He said it was just for people to use the Rider Waite meanings. Now, in a way, I was really pleased about that because I was very wary about contacting him about a booklet because, to be honest, my soul didn't want there to be a booklet. I wanted to do a deep dive and work out what these cards meant for me. They don't necessarily mean for me is pure Rider Waite system. I just can't read these cards for that. You know, I just can't. Just like the Empress card now means animal magic and the guides that come to you, that's what that card means to me. Find out that there wasn't a guidebook. It freed me up to step into where I wanted to be. And then I thought, why didn't I just do that anyway? Why didn't I just step into where I needed to be with this deck and the way it spoke to me straight away? I don't think I was approaching Christoph hoping that he would give me a guidebook to show me how it fitted the system. I think I was just clarifying that he didn't have his own system in his head when he drew it. Does that make sense? Anyway, I hope that makes sense. So for me, this deck, although I haven't finished the deep dive and I haven't totally worked out what these cards are for me, the cards that I have done that to are something else. It's such a good deck. It's it's literally like a soul narrative for me. I'm creating my own soul narrative with it, and I love it. So that for me is never going to sit in any system. It's going to completely be my own soul narrative for it. 9 decks, and I've loved it. So Natalia, thank you so much. It is completely wonderful having you back. You're such a force on here. It's you're like a force of nature that sweeps in and picks us all up on this joyous ride through your intelligence and your communication and your channel. It's just wonderful. So I'm going to link all of Natalia's links down below. Do go visit her. You're missing out big time if you don't. And yeah, so that's it. That's my System Free Tarot. And if you stuck along this long, then well done. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.